4 sessions into our Gamma World game, having lost one of the players after session 1, 3 of us remaining, and there is a lot to think about, especially in the context of my ongoing interest in continued play, indefinitely continued play of 4th edition stuff. Well, the first thing is that clearly the game was generated both with an eye toward, all right, we're going to go whimsical, what people call gonzo these days, with a fine name with its own legacy, but it's been repurposed into gamer talk. And it's oriented almost entirely toward setting up fights, a little bit like the stereotype of 4E, but with an interesting couple of exceptions, or not exceptions really, but avenues toward which you can go, which are explicit. So anyways, here's my little journey through this. Like many people, I first encountered Gamma World in the 1970s, and at the time, very much in line with a lot of the science fiction and sort of combination of grotesque and fun and scary and comedic apocalyptic stuff that was going on at the time. Apocalyptic science fiction was a lot less, what's the word I want? A lot less fantasy fulfillment, and a little more horrifying back then. Well, anyway, Gamma World was very much, an extravagant game at the time then, and they continued with that now. I've looked at a couple of the intervening editions through the 80s and the 90s, and they suffer a little bit from, dying of seriousness to some extent, losing a little bit of the whimsy, in my opinion. But anyway, this goes all the way in that direction, to the point, if you didn't know, you are dealing with both weird tech and with mutations in a cycling or more accurately, randomized way. This was tied into an obvious attempt to just make the whole thing into a collectible card game, make people buy cards for more powers and booster packs, and that whole thing. Well, played that way, it's really Looney Tunes, because you can have, regardless of your character concept, which you have rolled for both a couple of what they call origins, and so you get one from column A, one from column B, and you slap them together and you get a weirdo. And then you have all these weird mutations and weird tech that you are drawing not only every session, every encounter potentially. So the idea, of course, is to enjoy the fact, oh, my character grew an extra arm, oh, the extra arm's gone, but now I can, smell radiation or, whatever. And they're mostly overpowered, which is fun because they're not level specific. So it doesn't matter what level character you have playing. Well, a little bit. Your rolls are improved and your damage may be improved. There's a little bit of level-based content on those cards, but not much. So you're getting, massive dice, to do this. You'll only get to do it for one encounter, but, you get to do it. And then another thing pops up. And if you're using all the cards that you have available to you for the tech deck and the mutation deck, as I say, it's Looney Tunes. And I don't really say that contemptuously, but it is basically one joke. And it's going to be repeated colorfully over and over and over. Pretty hard to take any kind of scenario seriously. The game master is basically upping the ante on the absurdity. And it's kind of Ralph Bakshi-like in lots of ways to keep going with the animation references, which is a good thing. But it's also, using that same reference, ultimately fairly shallow. Which is, if you say, well, that's what we came for, right? We're going to run this 5 or 6 times, and do you remember the time when, you grabbed that guy's gun and you can eat metal, so you ate it? That was so awesome. And that can be kind of fun. The combinations of origins will give you a unique and, power set, and you go, well, what am I going to do with this and that together? That, click and lock, as it's called. And that can be fun too. So in my case, I got a particularly coherent blend with a seismic character who is effectively a living statue and exploding, which, you explode or boom things and put yourself back together. And I'm like, well, then, I got this guy. And through very little ratiocination, decided that I was going to play him kind of as if not a completely stereotypical hayseed farm boy, but very much in that zone. So he's always talking about what Ma told him, and he's got kind of an, yep, what next? Well, ain't that a corker, kind of approach toward stuff. So I kind of like the idea of him being real blasé. And then, of course, I get to have some payoff with that when and if I, turn toward the explosive aspects of his power set. So anyway, there I am playing this fellow Akma, which basically is me saying, well, rock. Okay, rock. Oh, all right, Akma. Okay, why not? So anyway, having a fine time with him. A lot of the imagery that I rolled along the way helps. I mean, he's got a pickup truck, stuff like that. So kind of enjoying that side of things. Especially because the various perceptual and mental stuff didn't end up being absurdly low, but it's very, very average. I mean, I'm not playing this guy to have a lot of insight into stuff. I'm looking for more of the, if not the immense wisdom that one would get from a high wisdom score, but at least sort of a common sensey approach. Well, with all that said, we end up, of course, with a couple of other very coherent characters, particularly Geiger. You can't get better than, a bioengineered human who's radioactive, who just stepped out of a pod somewhere, educated herself about life by reading whatever it was, looking at whatever it was, she had around in the little fallout shelter or whatever, strange laboratory she came out of, and has awakened into, had rolled a coloring book. Tazio had rolled a coloring book for one of the equipment and instantly said, aha, that's the key. She really values this coloring book. It's obviously full of secrets and clues and wisdom and insights, and we have to know. So that turned us toward the quest mechanics. Where do I start? First of all, given, the emphasis on encounters and fights, that means that we're playing without a tabletop grid. I don't like any of the virtual tabletops. I will play with them when people use them, and that's fine, but I don't like them. And I think especially in the Undiscovered game, I became quite enamored of simply providing a visual file for everybody to use, and then everybody basically, moves on their own in their own space on that piece of paper or on their screen if they like that better, and knows where they are and stuff like that. And I find that very functional. We aren't quite doing that in this one. I just realized that I might have mentioned that to Ross and pointed him toward that Undiscovered game, just for him to check out and see how we did it there. Because right now we're, I'm kind of squinting a little. He's got his map. He is using squares. He's counting squares. He knows where we are. And the verbal delivery of that, just going forward moment by moment, is harder to pick up collectively. And it hasn't, I think, well, anyway, it's been an issue a little bit, not in terms of the Merc and not knowing where we are or anything, but just in terms of tracking it. So therefore, that has sort of led us, I think, or has accentuated the need to have something to do. This is something actually that Jared and I talked about when he was considering, whether he wanted to keep playing. And the question is, does the game is clearly great on the Looney Tunes stuff, and the combat system is gorgeous for, all the usual kookiness of that. And yet, is that all there is? Is it merely, a colorful way to run fights and sell cards? And the only thing to go by that I could see was the quest mechanics, which are in the Gamma World game. They have been included. They don't just refer over to 4E. It's not like it's, a personal player thing to say, by the way, if we pick up the core book for 4E, we've got these quests. No, it's in there. And the book is very minimal. So whatever is in there, they want it in there. That's for sure. Well, anyway, the quest rules are very player driven and can be extremely an extreme game changer for 4E in general. If you start applying those rules, then all of a sudden the game master is dealing with a considerable amount of bounce from the player side, and the game takes on a very different character. So I decided that Akma wanted to figure out why they were attacked by those monkeys and it all, the flying apes, and it all made perfectly good sense in terms of he just wants to go to the market and have a nice peaceful market. These people are supposed to be taking care of the market, and they're not. So anyway, he's miffed. Well, that's a personal kind of minor quest thing, and once I articulated that, Tazio suddenly said, well, wait a minute, my coloring book, I mean, that's a quest, obviously, right? And so then we looked at the rules. Everybody's looking at the quest rules now, and that's great. Secondarily, something cropped up that really clicked it harder for us, even more so than the quests, possibly because it's more immediate. And I really recommend what I'm about to talk about. If you pick up this Gamma World game, I deeply, seriously recommend considering this, which is that instead of using the big wide, array of booster packs that you bought and put the cards in your Alpha Mutation deck is bigger now, and there's kookier shit in there now. You seen what this card can do? Instead of that whole thing, which incidentally makes seeing a card again crop up is kind of boring because you've seen it. No, now we've got a completely reversed situation. I'm talking about the personalized deck option for the Alpha Mutations. Omega Tech, you're on your own, buddy. Grab whatever's in that deck, draw it, and oh my God, But when it comes to the Alpha Mutations, you can take 7 or more cards and call that your deck, and you're only going to be drawing from that. Well, there's a chance you'll be drawing from the wider deck too. There's still a little bit, but most of the time you're going to be drawing from this deck. And it is 7 or more cards, and you may have duplicates, but only 2 of a given card. So the most minimum deck would be 7 cards, 2 duplicate, 2 duplicate, 2 duplicate, and 1 more, for a total of 4 types of cards, which is very tight. Now, mine is 10, but with 2 duplicates, so that ends up being 8 actual cards total. And you can, build it to the size and composition that you want. Now, in the commercial space of all of this, you're supposed to be using cards that you have. So if you're heard about a card and you're missing it, better go out and buy some more booster packs. Well, fuck that. We've got the list. So I just made the deck, on paper and made sure it was a multiple that, or a total number that matched a die, in my case 10. And so I just roll and then, I roll my die and, find out which card I get. So it's a wonderful thing because now I look through and it was easy as pie to find exactly what mutations were Akma. And as soon as I did that, and I only, drew that one time, but everybody watched me do that. And the other players were like, I'm doing that. So next session, we're going to be seeing these personalized mutation decks. And I will tell you, just knowing what's in that deck centers you on your character beautifully. I am very happy now. Akma is a whole dimension more himself. And I'm feeling very centered in that character, very ready to play what happens next. And with the quest rules in place, knowing that I can get motivated. I know where his motivations are. Right now, he's really, really pissed because he did not find out, despite immense effort and actually disrupting the whole market. Oops. Immense effort failed to figure out why on earth the Bonapartist monkeys were, flying apes were attacking people coming to the open market that they were supposed to be protecting. Right? Never got a straight answer. Really pissed him off. So he's moping right now behind the, in the pickup truck. So I know how he is. And if I get motivated about another quest, or if the chance to find out this one, I mean, the chance for him to do a U-turn, in the middle of some other problem when, we can find out about the apes, so I'm enjoying, the quest rules. And I think that with those in play, both for minor and major quests for our characters, and with the unexpected power of building those alpha mutation decks and recognizing just how well they really coalesce the other aspects of the character, so that now the repetition of getting, the same card again has exactly the opposite effect. Instead of being boring in terms of Looney Tunes possibility, because we saw this one already, no, instead it's like confirmatory. This is my character. These are the things. When I got the extra arms again, perhaps, or something like that. It's occasion for, sort of a cheer around the table. Here we go. With Akama's stuff, his way of being a mutating entity, a character here in Gamma World. So I'm liking that. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to turn into, the great novel. I doubt we're going to get the Forsyth Saga out of playing this game, but we're going to get something. We're going to get, and I think, a little something to remember out of this.